welcome back. Today we're on our way to the Great Wall, or rather China's Great Wall, as the game calls it, to hunt down our buddy Lance. Now last time, Lance got rejected by Lily, who turned into a flower and ran away. Lance was devastated, but his dad also has amnesia, so he decided to run off to the Great Wall to find the only cure for amnesia, the memory melt. I mean fluid from the Sandfanger. Definitely the only cure to amnesia. There's nothing else in the entire game world could possibly cure that. Anyways, if that sounds more like a soap opera than a video game to you, you are not alone. It's pretty soapy. Now, the Great Wall overall is a fairly simple dungeon. It consists of basically two parts. These brick stations that are very tall, have numerous floors, and have some winding paths and a ton of enemies in them. And the top of the wall that you traverse that has some hills blockading it that you can't pass yet. That's about it. And it's pretty true to life for the actual Great Wall. The wall itself is built with outposts like this one, and sections of wall. There are two main enemy types that we'll see here, with the third one that appears slightly more later on. There's the soldiers who are firing arrows at us, and these fireball elemental things. Of the two, the fireball elementals are by and far the more dangerous of them, because they actually have multiple attack patterns. The ones that are flying in the air will swoop down at you like some sort of Scree from Metroid, and they'll also drop lines of fire that will block your path temporarily. Now, the lines of fire, you can't actually walk through them, you'll bounce off them and take damage while you're in the process. And in fact, you'll keep taking damage for as long as you're touching them. You can, however, leap over them using the flute lunge like I did a bit earlier. The soldiers, on the other hand, will just shoot arrows, and that's about it. Now, the sparkly thing on the ground is... now if only he had given her that necklace instead of the flowers, maybe we wouldn't be having this problem right now, and everybody would have gone to the Great Wall together to find the memory... Sorry, I mean the Sandfanger fluid. There's just this weird thing in my mind that keeps telling me that maybe once earlier in the game, we may have cured amnesia with something else. Anyways, the second behavior of the fireball elementals is what we saw right there. The low ground-lying ones fire out a bunch of flames like a volcano. Think the volcanoes from the first Gradius game, except, well, much less deadly. It also helps that in this game you don't get killed by one hit. And there's another example of jumping over the flames with the flute lunge. I rather like the flute lunge, it makes for a nice dodging technique, and we'll see it put to the extreme much later on. Now, most of this dungeon is an exercise in bypassing those little hills by taking a much more roundabout path, filled with enemies and other things that want to kill you. Because of that, I wind up not liking this dungeon very much. It doesn't strike me as super clever in any way. And this is also the dungeon that has the least amount of switching back and forth between one person and the other. You only play as Fred for a very, very small amount of time, and it feels kind of shoehorned in. This, however, this isn't exactly the right place for these clay soldiers. This is the Terracotta Army, or at least the game's rendition of it. It was actually supposed to be the army of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, and was buried along with him, not at the Great Wall. And here we have the only red jewel in this entire area, which is kind of surprising considering that it's pretty large overall. Then again, there are only about 5 of these outposts. They're just really tall and filled with lots of enemies. And they can do a lot of damage there, too. You'll notice that I actually wound up with less life than I started with before I picked up that health power-up. What we just kicked in the face was the last new enemy for this area, the snake. The snake can actually do something interesting, which will you see later, and by interesting I mean it hurts rather a bit and it's pretty annoying. We'll see that later. For now, please enjoy as I kick more snakes in the face. Something that really irks me about the fire elementals is that they can just go through the walls and become pretty much impossible to hit. I'm not certain if they can actually glitch out completely, but I wouldn't be surprised if they can. Alright, multiple doors. Clearly only one of them is correct. I wonder if it's the one with the sparkly thing in front of it. Why, yes, it is. It leads to a switch. What we saw right there is one of those energy blasts that destroys barriers. Of course, a barrier was over here beforehand, but now it's gone. Just like those soldiers. And this one. Taking out that fire elemental gives us a much needed point of health. I can't really stress how much nice of Lily to show up. I just wish she actually could do something for us that was useful. As I was saying before, I love it when I pick up a health power-up. Why? Because it heals you completely. I'm pretty sure we've seen this a number of times so far in the LP, but man does that save my ass sometimes when I'm playing too aggressively. Now, the first time that I recorded this, I actually missed these enemies. I failed to kill them all. And as a result, I needed to re-record, just a few hours before before this video was uploaded. Okay, now that I've got them out of the way, let's keep running. You can actually glitch into one of those doorways if you run at it from the top of the screen. I mean, we didn't see it in this run-through, though. Now, fortunately, the game didn't make it so that you have to jump into every single part of the pit to find all the enemies. They have conveniently located staircases that take you to them. But we don't need to go to that one quite yet. However, walking up and down it lets us see the correct path to take through the other holes to get to a dark space. I wonder what could possibly await us there. Perhaps it's a cool new power for Will? And in fact, the final power for Will? Why, yes. Now, when it says spin dash, go ahead and imagine the Sonic the Hedgehog spin dash. Because it's the same thing. It's also completely awesome. The game isn't exactly clear on how to use the spin dash, and honestly neither am I as a result. But the way I've gotten it to work is you hold down the attack button until you start glowing green, like you would with the Psycho Dash. Then you stop moving, and mash R and L until you start spinning. Alright, let's head back up and try out our new power. No, belay that. First we have to find out why we need Fred. We need him to shoot that guy. Now in order to get back, we'll need to try out our new power. First we hold down the button, R and L, and then we let go of the attack button and push the direction we want to zoom. Now we can also keep holding down the attack button and just push a button to zoom, or double tap to run, as the case may be. And if you do that, you'll be able to walk around normally with the spinning intact. This is important because while you're spinning, everything you touch takes damage. Pretty significant amount of damage, too. In fact, it's a great way to kill enemies that like to swoop in towards you because you're also invincible while you're spinning. So for example, these fire elementals could be taken out quite easily by it. And the cool part about it is that you're invincible and cause damage even when you're not moving with it. So that poor sap ran into me, and he still got hosed. This will become very important dealing with a particularly obnoxious enemy in a later dungeon. Suckers! Yeah, spin dash. Very cool move. And this is the special thing that snakes do. They latch onto you and don't let go and cause damage. And that's about it. They're kind of lame. Now, even if you do the dash and you're not just walking around, the spin dash still hurts things. You only stop doing the damaging spin when you're flying because you hit a ramp. Or not necessarily because you hit a ramp, but because you hit a jump. And here is another one of those timed switch running puzzles. Well, it's more of a... I don't know if you could really call it a puzzle, as much as it is needing to pull off a sequence of events with more dexterity than I'm showing here. There we go. Much better. Alright, now this is actually the same piece of real estate as it was when I killed those enemies that I told you I missed last time. As a result, I was down 1 health power-up that I needed. Time for Fred to shine. Fortunately, while this is a dungeon for Will, Fred kind of gets his own dungeon with a power coming up. Too bad his power isn't anywhere near as cool or good as the spin dash, and his dungeon kind of blows and everybody hates it. It's okay, upcoming dungeon. I don't hate you that much. While I was silent, you probably noticed that this place has specialized music just for it. As I mentioned before, this generally signifies that you are in a dungeon that's going to give us a mystic statue. And the Sandfanger fluid. And here is that fire elemental, perfectly demonstrating what I mentioned before about being obnoxious. This puzzle can actually screw you up a bit if you're not entirely certain of what's going on. So these can be both pushed and pulled, which is the first thing that you might not know. The second is that it's hard to see where exactly you have space to move yourself or the statues. It's especially prevalent right here, where you might not realize that you can just walk right past that dude to get to a switch, which then turns them all into actual dudes that you can kill. This dungeon is about to wind down. That was basically the last challenge. All we need to do is finish off that soldier that was... Well, not even that. We already finished off the soldier. So, the only actual thing left to do is find another dark space so we can get past that hill. Fortunately, we can sate Fred's bloodlust by having him kill a bunch more stuff. Although personally, I'd rather have Will for this section so that I can use the spin dash. The spin dash is, of course, Will's only move that isn't Psycho something. For some reason, though, I had it in my mind that it's called the Psycho Whirl. Perhaps a memory from another lifetime. Maybe even granted to me by the you mean Sandfanger fluid. Another terracotta army. This time, there's no switch. We just have to guess which ones are the things we can kill. Of course, there are many ways to tell. One is that we can look at them on radar, and the other is that they're all facing down, even if they're at the bottom. And another is that they have a more defined face than the actual terracotta soldiers. While we don't actually see it happen, killing them all makes a dark space appear. See? Wasn't there before. And it lets us turn back into Will. Now, across that hill we saw earlier is the lair of the boss. That means that we must fight this particular boss as Will. Fortunately, that is a complete non-issue in terms of actually beating it, because it is a completely ineffectual and non-threatening boss. You will honestly be shocked at how pathetic this thing is. Sandfanger is, of course, a giant centipede thing in the vein of Landmola or Moldorm from Zelda games. In fact, it's sort of a terrible bastard hybrid of them. It's also a complete joke. As long as I stand down here and swing upward, I basically can't be harmed. I do have to make sure to take out the smaller Sandfangers, though, the baby ones. Otherwise, the rocks they throw could sneak up on you. You could block them with telekinesis, though, so it doesn't really matter, as long as you're paying attention. Of course, sometimes Sandfanger decides that he just isn't going to, make himself available to be punched. Or hit with the flute in this case. And unfortunately, this is what he's decided to do for this particular run-through. He's actually not going to spawn any more things and remain vulnerable for more than half a second for the rest of the fight. And that's the only reason it takes as long as it is. He can't hit me. There's absolutely nothing he can do to stop me from eventually killing him. I mean, at least with Viper, there were plenty of conceivable ways that he could hit you. And it's actually really tough to dodge a lot of the vampire's attacks. And the same thing with Castoff. It's just... I mean... I guess they felt that this boss needed to be at a lower difficulty level because you have to fight them with Will, and Will is obviously not good at fighting. Which is, in this case, a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it doesn't even let you use his special moves against them without actually risking damage. I could probably stand down here and charge up the spin dash and see if he would run into it, but there's no real point. Just gonna keep swinging the flute. Don't want to work. So want to swing on the flute all day. There we go. At last. Suddenly, a mystic statue. And something else that you might have noticed as well. You'll see that I gained 1 HP from winning that fight. But I hadn't been damaged. So what does that mean? Well, it means that somewhere, over the course of the game, I missed a health power-up and didn't realize it. Which health power-up? I don't know, but if any of you guys in the thread can figure out which one I missed, and or create a video of it being gotten, that would be great. I don't know how he got that medicine considering we killed the Sandfanger. Hell no! Let's bounce.